Hey, hi, and welcome back to the Southern Millennial Mom Podcast. I'm Samantha May, and I am your official Southern Millennial Mom. First off, as always, thank you so much to all of my returning listeners. You all mean a great deal to me that you constantly come back and listen to me go on and on about things that may not be important to you, but they feel like they're important to me. To the people that are new here, I think you missed a few episodes. That's fine. I do highly recommend that you go back to episode 1 just to get to know me better, because it's just an introduction of myself, and I feel like it'll help you again get to know me better, where I stand, who I am, what I believe, and all those important facts you should know about someone you're listening to that you feel like is giving good advice. Got a couple of things before we actually get into the episode. First off, there is a trigger warning. Miscarriage is mentioned and talked about in this episode. If that, again, triggers you, feel free to either skip that section or just, you don't have to listen to the episode if it just makes you uncomfortable. Secondly, recap of the last episode talking about safety and etiquette for a carpool pickup at school, either for yourself, for the other people picking up kids, the kids themselves, and whoever is working carpool at any given day. I highly suggest that you go listen to that if you are a carpool parent or part-time carpool parent. Today, I have a very, very special guest, my amazing, wonderful, loving, kind. Like, this woman has so many good adjectives attached to her name for me personally. But my mother-in-law, Monica, is here with me, and today's episode, we're going to be talking about having the kids gone out of the house. You and your spouse are alone again for the longest time. Why don't you tell about yourself?
Well, hello, and I'm blushing, so thank you for the sweet adjectives. I'm the mother of 9 children, the wife of the same husband for 43 years. Seems like a lifetime. I am a Christ follower, and that would be my biggest title, because without that, none of the rest of it would fall into place for me.
Yeah.
I am the grandmother of 14 grandchildren, which is basically my role now as is grandmother, and a role that I'm absolutely loving.
There's also another title that you have, and that is blogger.
Yes.
Could you tell a little bit about that?
So the last about 3 years, I've been feeling like the Lord is calling me to write and share some of the lessons I've learned over the years. And just last year, I went to this little writing seminar, and some ladies there were blogging, and all of a sudden the writing seemed doable for me, because before that I was overwhelmed thinking I can't write a book. And then I got to thinking about my amazing daughter-in-law, and that she would be able to help me do that, and she has. And so my blog is You Butter, I Syrup. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, it is.
You Butter, I Syrup. It explains on my first blog why I chose that name.
It's a very cute little story.
But anyway, it's about learning to serve one another. And that's the basis of it, is let's learn to serve one another.
For anybody interested in going to go check that out, I will have the link for that in the description of this podcast. All right. Well, let's talk about how we got to know each other first. The first time, well, according to the little story I put together for Ryan on our 2-year anniversary, I'll have to show it to you. It's a little embarrassing, but it's so funny now that I think back on it. And I don't remember this, but obviously it happened. The first time I met you was in Alabama Adventure in 2007. Yes. It's been a while. You were there with the kids. I was there with the band that I was in, or the church group, whatever. And that was the first time, according to that little storybook, that we met. But I don't know if we stayed and talked for a while or anything, but I think like the first time I really just like remember you is when me and Jessica would come over and just hang out with Ryan. And I was like, this woman has 9 kids. And at that point, I think when I first met Ryan, like he said it, but Austin and Whitney were already gone and hadn't met them yet. And I was like, man, she's got all these little kids running around. How is she not crazy?
Again, as I started out, it was the mercy of the Lord because, just seeking Him daily kept me sane.
He's the only one that could, because I know all your kids.
Very independent, strong-willed children.
They are very strong-willed, but they are also willing to accept wisdom and advice and things like that.
They're very teachable.
They are. All right. Okay. One question I do have. What was your... I don't think this was in the questions that I sent you, but what was the first thought when the last kid moved out? Like, what was something that just kept going through your head? Like, all my kids are adults now. They're either getting married, going to college.
It was such it was just sort of a really good transition. I had a daily job at the time. And so, we had, because the kids were so busy, always having activities, it was just Stevie and I most of the time in the evenings anyway. So we rarely... So it was also almost like one day you just kind of like, oh, they're not actually coming home today. Oh, they're gone. They got their own living space. Yay. We did it. We've accomplished the goal we set out for.
One thing you also didn't mention, another title you have was teacher.
Yes, I homeschooled for 21 years. And that was quite an experience. I tell people that is one of the hardest jobs you can ever do, but it's also one of the most rewarding jobs you can ever have.
I think I talked about it with Whitney. I don't think it's just about patience. It's about willingness to be a homeschool teacher, to be a homeschool mom, because... Well, for me, it's patience, and I would get to a point where it'd just be like, all right, you can just not do it and just fail. And that's a terrible mindset to have. That is. But I realized I do have the mom mindset. I just don't have that kind of teacher mindset or patience to handle a lot of homework and stuff. It's probably because we didn't do homework at home. We always did it at school. And is just seemed normal for me not to do school at home.
Well, homeschooling for us was a calling.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely felt the Lord lead us in that direction. And then, there were days that I wanted to just throw, and I did. I threw up my hands and said, okay, go on. I'm tired today. But
I know who caused most of that in the beginning. I know who did that.
But he and all of them, I have to say that the Lord did his part for sure, because where I failed, the Lord made up for. But homeschooling was definitely a calling for us, and there would have been times that if I were doing it at my own strength, I would have quit.
Mm-hmm.
But the Lord gave me strength to move on. And
a lot of people have the misconception that all homeschool kids are weird. They don't have social interactions with people outside of that weird little group. And that wasn't true for your kids.
My kids knew how to talk to kids. They knew how to talk to adults. We taught them to be respectful to adults and learn and grow from adults. And that was some advice we were given early on, is, to train your children to talk to adults. And because they had adult interaction and not just peer interactions, they learned to do that.
It's a great way of saying that, because kids they'll talk to their friends' parents, and they don't see them as adults. They just see them as so and so's mom or dad, and the teachers and other people like that. I never really thought about teaching them to talk to adults. When Boo was growing up and really paying attention to how we were talking and behaving with other adults and other kids, I was just like, you have to be polite. You have to be respectful. It didn't occur to be children and adults. It's just people.
Right.
Because, the way she is now, she's kind to everybody unless they give her a reason not to.
Yeah, I love hanging out with her. She's so fun.
She's a hoot.
Well, we learned something just before we started homeschooling about how children acted before World War II and how children acted after World War II. And before World War II, there were multiple, many times grandparents lived in the household, and many times the family work happened out of the household. And so children were a part of the family business, whatever it may be, logging, farming, cattle, whatever. And so they had a working part of the family before World War II. Well, after World War II, then kids became latchkey kids because mom and dad went off to work in factories or whatever.
Yeah.
And kids got left at home, so they weren't getting as much adult interaction.
Yeah.
And they didn't feel as important. They felt like a liability rather than an active part of the family.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I decided that we wanted our children to know they were a working part of our family. And so that's what we strive to do.
Yeah. Well, and I also guess it kind of helped that with the homeschooling that the kids could stop schooling and go straight into the farming business each day. And a lot of people don't realize this because all they hear about is, if they're homeschooled, they turn out weird and they marry weird people and things like that. But obviously they don't. And the whole 8 hours at school is a bit ridiculous.
Most of the time it took us 3 to 4.
Exactly. That's what, when That's what Ryan's was always talking about. Oh, it's only going to be this long, this many hours. Like, it's going to feel like so much longer.
Well, one thing that people always said to me said, well, you're gifted with patience. And I was like, no, it just took 9 kids to teach me patience.
Yes. And then now you got 14 grandkids.
Yeah.
You've just developed it quicker than most parents. All right, now we will get into the actual questions I have for you. And our first question: what is some advice that you would give a future empty nester?
First of all, God's not through with you. This isn't the end of your life. This isn't the end of your usefulness. God just opened another chapter in your life. So we get to go and, invest in our grandchildren's lives. We get to invest in our neighbors' lives. It has freed me up that I get to, somebody calls and says, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, can you help me with that? I'm like, yeah. And which I love. So basically your job description has just changed. You're going to have some new challenges, but the motivation is still the same. You're going to love and live for Christ, whatever you do.
Ryan, several times being a stay-at-home mom, my main focus was in taking care of Ryan in the house. But when Boo finally did move out, I would have this free time and not know what I should do with it. And he thought I needed some kind of hobby. And I was like, yeah, I need to find something before she gets to 18 or even 16. Something that I can have that's my own, that will take up time. And I won't try to live vicariously through her. And for the longest time, I didn't know what that would be, because I've never felt the need, well, I don't want to call it a calling or a need, but somewhere in between to go back to work, because sometimes when Ryan and I talk about me going back to work, we're in that low point. And we talk about, okay, we might need to go get a job to help pay with things. And then we pray about it. And then all of a sudden, opportunities at Ryan's job is like, no, she doesn't need to go to work. And so I think, even though I'm not an empty nester, shouldn't focus your whole life on your kids, because they're just a part of your life.
Well, we got some really good advice before we got married from a gentleman. He just sat down by us one day, and he said, y'all need to enjoy one another, but you need to go enjoy friends, and you need to go enjoy friends, and then come back and enjoy one another. Mm-hmm. Of course, with 9 kids in the house, there's very little time for me to go enjoy friends.
Yeah.
But one thing my husband did let me do, he let me go play tennis. And I did, and I was a part of Bible study groups. So I had some, for lack of a better way to say it, some me time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was just good. It revived me so that I was able to be a better mom. And, which got me to encourage my children to focus on things that they needed to do, or their gifts, or their, outs, or whatever, hobbies.
Yeah, that was actually, it kind of ties into the next question of what is some helpful or not so helpful advice you got when you became an empty nester?
My sister gave me a book, or she was reading this book, and she and I talked about it several times, and then she died. But then once she died, I found it laying on her bedside table, and I grabbed it. And the book was called How to Do Life with Your Adult Children.
Oh.
And it said, keep your mouth shut and the door, welcome Matt out. I'm like, okay, I can do that. But the in reading, I haven't finished the book, but in reading parts of it, it said, don't force your advice on your children. Be there ready to give it when they ask for it, but don't force it on them. They need to ask. And I think there's a few times we forced it. Forgive us, Lord. But, as we're getting older and learning, we're learning to, if we see a need, we just begin to pray. And then many times they come and ask for advice.
Yeah, and it is not just advice, for help. I know there are several times we came to y'all when we were struggling early on, and now we are in the phase of our life where we can give. And you came to me for advice for your blog, and I'm going to tell you, I got giddy when you asked me about that, and so I was like, oh, she's asking me for this. And anytime you ask me for the Cajun pasta recipe, I was like, I can make something Monica likes. Yeah. I get so excited when you ask me for things like that.
That makes me feel good.
Yay! I can help her in some way. All right, for the second part of that question, have you had any not so helpful advice? Like someone just says something out of the blue and you look at them like, did that really come out of your mouth? Do you not know who I am? I don't know that anybody has advised us or not advised us, but I've observed, people who just want to put themselves in their children's life so much that their children get tired of them. Yes, and then they wonder why their
what's
children.
The problem?
Yeah, why don't my kids talk to me anymore?
I remember one of my daughters when she went off to college, and she had a roommate, and her roommate talked to her mother 3 or 4 times a day, and she was lucky if she talked to me once a week. And I'm like, well, you know where I am, and you know that I'll help you whatever, and it's not that I'm not thinking of you. I just don't want to, force myself in on you. Yeah, I'd love to know what's going on with you, but I know you're busy. You don't need my input all the time, and if you need it, you'll ask me. And she did.
Yeah.
She would ask me.
I think I remember that story, though I can't specifically remember which one it was. And I think the way that your relationship with your kids is a great example, because you and Stevie were willing to let your kids out into the world to go make mistakes, but knowing they'll come back and ask for help.
Well, the Bible calls it raising arrows.
Exactly.
I mean, our quiver became full and the arrows went out.
They did.
They've gone. And that's what we were supposed to do. We weren't supposed to raise them to keep them in under us. They're supposed to be, and I might need to wait because that's part of another question. But they're supposed to be productive citizens. They're supposed to be witnesses, and that's what we raised them to do.
I think that's what Ryan was kind of worried about when Boo eventually did move out, and I wouldn't have anything to focus on other than her. Was she doing everything she was told? Was she doing everything that I taught her to do?
No, I have prayed that the Lord would give you joy in your work. And that's something I'm seeing happen with you, and it blesses me to see that you are finding joy in serving people, and you're finding joy in the work God's given you to do.
Okay.
And we won't cry through that.
I don't have any tissues. You can't cry. What is something you miss about the kids always being at home? Because, and the next question is, what is something you don't? But there are times when Boo's gone, I miss her obnoxious laughter. And it's like it's too quiet in here.
I miss knowing what's going on with them and, just being in their everyday lives. So I actually miss them.
Yeah, not stuff that they do in the house.
I don't miss the messiness. I don't miss the constant activity.
Really?
Because we were constantly... Well, I really haven't had time to miss the constant activity because...
You're constantly doing things still.
I mean, I'm getting it, I get to be involved in everybody's lives, different times, different places. Anyway.
Like, I'm just trying to think of other than while you and Stevie are out in your camper doing that kind of thing. Well, while you're still doing that, I've never known you to not be active. Like, there are times you can't sit still at all. And it could be you have a little bit of ADD in you and you just can't be still.
I guess always I had plenty to do, and so I didn't realize I didn't have ADD. I don't know. It never had a name when I was...
it wasn't really ever something that was brought up when me and your kids were young, until probably the twins, when it really got talked about more. And other things. That thought ended. It was done. This isn't on here, but when did you and Stevie first talk about having kids? Did the conversation ever happen while you were dating? Because I asked Whitney this, and she told me that, on her and Daniel's first date, that she wants to be a stay-at-home mom and she wants 4 or 5 kids, which she got. So I don't know if you and Stevie had a kid conversation before kid number 1 came, or...
I was extremely young, very naive, and, when we were dating. So, and then extremely young when we got married.
Okay, you were 17?
17.
Oh, yeah, got it right.
And we had, said, yes, we want kids a couple of times.
But there was no definitive number, which is the question.
But in my brain, I wanted 2. And I got my boy, I got my girl, and then I got my surprise almost immediately after the boy and the girl.
Yes.
And you got to marry my surprise.
I did. He was a very good surprise.
He was. We always called him our little Mr. Special. And so I'm sure you don't want me to go in that long story.
Complete side. Ryan and I have been talking about the whole kid thing, and I started talking to him about getting a hysterectomy. And he's like, well, there's so many things, so many different ways that can be done. And I'm like, I'm not getting my tubes tied. You're a good example as to why tied tubes don't work.
Oh, I had that undone.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had a tubal reversal done.
I knew.
Again, that's a long story that you probably don't want on this.
Well, I know, that you, it didn't sit well in your spirit when you got it done. and so you got it undone.
It didn't sit well in my spirit after I got it done.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
At first it was like, I got 3 kids, I can't do any more than that. I got to get this taken care of.
Yeah.
And I caved into some advice that I shouldn't have.
Well, Trevor is a tied to baby. It's probably why he ended up so big.
But anyway, that was, that's a whole nother story that we'll use another day.
I want to hear that one. I don't think I have. If I did, I forgot about it, and I need to be reminded. But, you said you wanted to.
And then, but after, well, I guess I'm going to have to pull some of that story in. Yes, I wanted to. Got my tubes tied after the 3rd one. We went 5 or 6 years there, about 5 years. And the Lord just laid on my heart, well, He gave me a desire for another baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out my husband was praying I wanted another baby.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then when I told him about it, he was excited. And I'm like, it's too late. And so we went and saw what it would cost us to have a tubal reversal. And it was way more money than we could have afforded.
Mm-hmm.
And not long after that, we found out about a ministry in New Braunfels, Texas, that did it for the bare minimum cost. And so we went out to New Braunfels, Texas, and I had a tubal reversal done, and I was pregnant 2 months later.
What?
and then had 6 kids in 7 years.
And the last 2 were twins.
Right.
And not tiny twins either.
Mm-mm.
The pictures of you pregnant with the twins, I was like, I'll see them on occasion, and I'll be like, why isn't she like in a wheelchair being pushed around? Because
I looked a little abnormal, didn't I?
you did. And it is I want to say it's hilarious, because when Mom was pregnant with Trevor, everybody thought she was pregnant with twins. His head was so big that she looked ginormous. And out pops this 11-pound big-headed baby, and that was it.
Well, the 2 of mine were almost 13 pounds together.
Bless your heart and your body.
Yeah. Anyway, you got the story.
Yes. But that's a great story.
Well, it is. And, it's a great story of redemption that I feel like the Lord gave us a second chance after a bad choice on my part. Not everybody's is a bad choice. Mine was a bad choice because I didn't consider how my husband felt. Yeah. I didn't consider several things. And, and I just felt like the Lord redeemed me. And I'm thankful for that.
You were dealing with, Austin was 2 and Whitney was a year old at the time when you had Ryan.
Whitney was a year. Austin was 3.5.
So
I was dealing with three children, 3.5 and under.
So I hate to call it a mistake. You realized the bad decision, and you and Stevie were eventually praying for the same thing after Ryan was born, and He gave you the opportunity to reverse it. That's the great thing about God. And it's like the thing with me, Mariah and I talking about I might have to get a job, and we pray about it, and opportunities at his job provides us the money we need, not extra money, the money we need to get all the stuff done.
Well, the great thing about redemption is God lets you share that story with other people.
Yes.
And they realize they can be redeemed too.
Yes.
And I cannot tell you how many people I've shared that story with, and they went and did the same thing, or ended up doing it.
Yeah.
And so I praise the Lord for that.
It became a teachable experience for you. Okay. We keep veering off to the rest of that question. I know most guys don't think about the number of kids they want. They just know they want a son. But did Stevie ever talk about having a big family?
No, he didn't. Of course, he was from a big family, but that was never. It's like we really never had a goal. We just
what number to stop at?
We just kind of. After a while, it was just became obvious. Okay, this is enough.
Yeah,
and so that's what we did.
And I told Whitney this. Every time Ryan tells somebody, or I tell somebody that you had 9 kids, they're like, "What? Is she like Mormon or something?" Like, no, she's a good Southern Baptist lady.
Well, yeah, they ask me what religion I am usually, and do you not believe in birth control? Do you all this kind of stuff, and it's like, you just grin and bear it.
and a lot
just let them know you're blessed. I'm blessed. That's all I can tell you.
I got 9 different personalities,
and I can't imagine life without any of them, because each of them have been so unique and such a blessing. From the oldest to the youngest, and I pray that I've made each one of them feel very valued and very much wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I pray that each of them know how much they're wanted.
Anytime I talk to them or they talk about you, they're like, they just get that little glow in their eyes when they talk about you, and I'm like, I married into this family, and I got lucky. It took 20-ish years. I think it was 20-something when Ryan and I got married. But I found you, and I'm so grateful that I did.
Well, thank you.
All right, I'm going to get into the only hard question. And I think I've learned about this when you were moving. It was never, I guess it's a very uncomfortable subject. I think if, after healing has happened, that if you can teach from this kind of bad experience, because I've gone through a lot of childhood trauma, that it took me until meeting Ryan to get over the trauma, and now I can talk about it more. And if people listen, they might find an answer to a question that they've been asking themselves, asking God. I know that you suffered the loss of a baby. Whatever you're comfortable sharing about that kind of thing.
I don't mind sharing with you. I really don't. So it was my 8th pregnancy, and when I first got pregnant, I was not very happy, which was very unusual for me, because most of the time when I got pregnant, it was like, oh yeah, you got another baby. Mm-hmm. But this particular time, I was tired, and I just was not happy that I was pregnant. So anyway, I prayed and I kept seeking the Lord, and the Lord gave me a peace about it, mm-hmm. and a joy that, okay, I got another life. And and the Lord just assured me again that He was still my provider, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually, He would still provide. And so I got peace about it. Well, the next thing I know, I'm having a miscarriage. And I started questioning God. It's like, I don't understand this. You gave me a peace about it. Why am I losing this baby? Mm-hmm. And this is the verse He gave me. Mm-hmm. And I had been studying Job, and Job 2, 9 through 10 says, his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. And he replied, You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not accept trouble? In all of this, Job did not sin in what he said. And as soon as I read that, and shall we accept good and not trouble, I began to think of the 7 children sitting inside my house, because I was sitting on my front porch when I was doing this. I began to think of the 7 children inside my house, and I'm like, Lord, you have given me 7 healthy, blessed children. And for some reason, you want to carry this one home to be with you. So be it. I love you still. And I will not curse you, and I want to maintain integrity, because God is good even in the trouble.
And it's not the exact same, but that was the mindset I had when Dad passed away. I knew eventually his health was declining quickly, and I was like, I'm not going to be mad at you, God. He finally doesn't feel any pain. He's finally with you where he's been wanting to be. It was sad, but it was also a blessing to learn from that and feel the peace of no longer worrying about him calling saying I have to go to the hospital and things like that.
Well, he told us, Jesus told us there's going to be trouble in this life. And to maintain our integrity through the trouble and to continue to bless God, worship Him, love Him, because He never stops loving us, even when we make our mistakes, even when we question Him. And I've had some of my kids say, but why? They'll be going through trouble, but why? I'm like, ask God. He's a big God. You may get an answer, you may not, but He will hear you, and He will comfort you and strengthen you. And that's exactly what He did for me. He comforted me. And I think, the same God that equipped me, empowered me to raise 9 children is the same God that comforted me and strengthened me through a miscarriage.
What was something that after people realized you had a miscarriage, what is something that you wished they would stop saying?
Well, I really did not experience any negative anything from anybody. Nobody really talked to me at all about it, really. So I really don't have a good answer for that one.
When Dad passed, I was constantly be tired of people, and they'd be like, my condolences, or things like this. The things that everybody says. Nothing original. I'd get a little angry with them. I don't know if anger's too strong. I'd get upset with them for saying it, because, okay, if you're sorry, why weren't you there, helping him do things at his house, taking him to the hospital, so he wasn't driving in the middle of the night with probably going through a very mild heart attack, because he had gone to, I remember he called me one night and was like, I'm feeling pain in my chest. I'm going to go to the I'm going to drive to the doctor. Or I'm driving to the doctor in the big city. And I was like, why are you doing that? I can come and get you, or you can just meet me halfway and I'll take you. He's like, I'm almost there. I thought I'd call you just in case. And I can't remember, but I think we did go to I did go to the hospital to sit in the room with him. And the doctors were like, well, we don't see anything. We don't hear anything. And I'm like, he is complaining that his heart feels like it's being squeezed. He's, all the signs of a heart attack. And they're like, oh, well, we can't find anything. And then I get the call from Grandpa that Dad passed away in his sleep. And then later that it was from a heart attack. All right, we're going to move past the serious. curious. Where do you find yourself the most now that you're an empty nester?
On the road.
Oh, yes.
I'm on the road a lot. I do a good bit of babysitting. I try to make events, the grandchildren events, children events, whatever. Whether it's a football game, soccer game, basketball game.
Taekwondo tournament, graduation.
We can go through a whole list of things. Birthday parties.
Yeah.
One thing I do try to do is I try to take each child out for a special date on their birthday, because I think time is more valuable than whatever gift I can give them.
And I totally believe that.
And it's proved to be true, because I had one granddaughter this past year. I was having trouble working out a date, that I could spend time with her. So I asked one of her parents, I said, what would she like for her birthday? I hadn't had a chance to take her out. And they asked her, and she goes, you mean I don't get to go out with Mommy? And I'm like, well, we will make a time,
Yeah, it may not be on your birthday like usual, but...
Anyway, so they've come to expect it, which is great, because I feel very blessed, privileged to get to spend that time with them.
And it's just you and that one kid.
Right. They get special one time.
Mommy treatment.
And I love it. I spend a lot of time doing that kind of thing. But I also have time for Bible studies. I have time to have lunch with friends. I've even
finally getting that real friend time.
I get friend time. I've started a little side catering business, so that's kind of fun. A friend of mine and I are doing that together, and so I have all kind of little projects going.
So you're still busy.
Very.
Basically just said what's taking up most of your time now that you're not worrying about the kids, but...
Well, I had another comment on that, too. It's not that we don't think about our kids anymore. We still think about them. We do a whole lot more praying. I don't know if we do more, but we pray.
Sometimes it feels like it.
And we still think about them, but we don't, we're just in different ways.
You're not constantly wondering where they're at. And
right. I don't have to know where they are every minute, but I do, I pray about the things that concern them.
Like, one of the things I really love about the relationship between you and your kids, your son just tried to call you a little while ago just to chat with his mom.
I love that.
I love that. I love that relationship, and that's the kind of relationship I want to have with Boo when she gets to his age. And she just, calls to want to talk to me, catch up if, we hadn't seen each other, though. You just saw him yesterday, didn't you?
Actually, no, I didn't.
Really? Shame on him.
He was at drill.
Oh.
I saw the rest of his family. I didn't see him.
He has a pretty decent excuse not to be there. If he was hunting, that's not a good excuse. Who was or is some of the sounding board for some of your worries and the triumphs that you've gone through life when the kids started moving out and started becoming more independent?
Well, Ginger was the big one.
Yeah.
I was blessed with a wonderful sister who was my best friend. And she and I had children that were similar ages, and we could be real with one another, and we could say, we could hear each other out and know what each other was going through, but we could also say, hey, you're going the wrong way right now. Let's pray about that, know. And we were, big prayer buddies, and I miss her a lot. But, the Lord has put some other people in my life who have been amazing at hearing me and praying with me. And so you don't have a whole lot of just intimate people that you can just share anything with.
Yeah.
But the Lord's given me a couple. And some of them are my daughters.
That's always
which is
great.
Pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
And my sons. I have to say, I have some.
So you can talk to your kids,
I can.
kids.
Yeah, I can. My kids they've become my best friends. Besides their daddy.
And they're adults, which is the best time to do that. I've heard and seen from a lot of can't think of a word, it blanked, like professionals. They're like, you don't want to be your children's when they're young. You don't want to be their best friend when they're children. You want to be their best friend when they're adults. And that way they want to come and call you just for no reason. And again, that's the kind of relationship I want with Boo when she gets older.
Well, I tell people, I'm on the reward side of raising children right now.
Yeah.
I'm reaping the rewards of the hard work, the long nights, the worries, the messy house, all the things that you go through.
Yeah.
And just learning to stay, to persevere and be steadfast through all of that. The Lord is allowing me some rewards now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome. I enjoy it.
You put in the hard work, and now you're reaping the harvest of all of that.
I really am, and it's an exciting place to be.
Yep. What are, now that your children are grown, and most of them are married, all but two, I'm waiting on those two. I know one, hopefully, is really close. Unless you know something I don't. But we'll talk about that later. What are some of the goals that you secretly had for your kids that they exceeded at?
My biggest goal for my kids, and it was not a secret, was that they love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. That was the absolute biggest goal I wanted for each of them. And that was my prayer for them. And that they know and fulfill the work that God had created them to do. I wanted each one of them to know that they were not a mistake, that, you're one of 9, but you're not a mistake. God created you specifically. Ephesians 2:10 says that. He created you, and He created a work for you to do before you were even born. And I wanted them to know that work and fulfill it. And what's awesome is I'm watching each of them go the way they should go. I wanted them to find the mate God had for them, and I love watching that happen. And I wanted them to be, financially independent, hard workers, good citizens. I wanted them to have a servant heart, and I believe, that was one thing we worked really hard at teaching them, is to serve other people.
And I think all of them have a job in helping somebody, in fixing people's problems.
Well, whether their job description is that or not, they do it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know Ryan's a big advocate, ask him what. Even sometimes he's like, they don't even ask him, and he just jumps right in.
Right. And if we've raised children that love other people, well, the scripture's real clear. The greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And if those two line up, then you're going to be a good citizen. You're going to do the things that bless other people. So, that was definitely my greatest goal for them. I think I'll wait till you ask the question. Go ahead.
I think that's something that a lot of parents want. I already know the answer, one answer to this question, but what are some hobbies that you are now able to do that you couldn't because the kids were in the house? And I know one of them is traveling around in a camper.
That's it.
That's it? That's all you ever wanted to do?
No, but that's one of them for sure. Camping, lunch with friends, catering, blogging. So all of those, I do a good bit of sewing these days, and not so much as a hobby, but more as helping other people out.
Yeah, Boo has been she's more into like kind of hand stitching, but she uses a lot of scrap material that Ryan has left over and stuff, and I've attempted the sewing thing. It just does not bring me joy.
I like to see something come together and be pretty.
Yes.
And I don't know, sewing does that for me. So I enjoy it. Baking. I do a good bit of baking.
You do. And you come up with your own recipes for things.
I'm not afraid to try different things to tweak things.
Well, now you can because the only other person trying these are your husband. You're not worried about...
I wasn't even afraid of it with the kids either.
Man, young parents today would be like, you are so brave. And, well, when the kids were growing up, when it came to eating, it's not on here, but you didn't deal with picky eaters. Overly picky eaters.
I had one that was pretty picky for a long, long time. And he would be basically eat mac and cheese, crackers, milk, a grilled cheese, bread and cheese. That was...
Yeah. Carbs and dairy, that was all he ingested.
That's about all he wanted. And it took a long time to get him over that. But most of them, ate what I put on the table.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of, summer vegetables, peas, butter beans, corn.
You were literally farm to table.
Right, definitely.
What is one goal that you are still trying to reach for since becoming an empty nester?
Again, my biggest goal is to do what the Lord wants me to have an ear that's very attentive to the Lord and to see people's needs and to serve. And, to be attentive and find the person that needs to be served each day.
Okay, so we all make mistakes.
Yes.
What is one that you look back on that you feel like you learned the most from with your kids?
You're talking about mistakes with my kids?
Yes.
One that I did that I still really have a hard time forgiving myself for is spanking for bedwetting. And again, I was listening to wrong advice, and as this particular child got older, I found out it was actually a medical problem. And I didn't do a lot of spanking. After a while, I just quit. It's like, that's not helping. I'm not going to do that anymore. But you still tend to beat yourself up over that kind of stuff. other mistakes is one of my daughters, I didn't have her completely prepared for a event she was in, and she ended up getting embarrassed.
Yeah.
And although, I've apologized to her for that several times, she goes, Mom, although I was embarrassed, she said, that will never happen to me again. And she says, I make sure it doesn't happen to any of my students either. So she totally learned from it.
Yes.
And, and it made her very aware. So sometimes I miss things that other parents would have caught. And I don't know if it was because I just had so many or what. That's where I had to just trust that the Lord would make up for my mistakes. Then there are other times where I expected too much, maybe out of my older kids. And I may have been a little tougher on them than I was on my younger kids. And again, I've apologized to them for that too. But
well, also, you when you look at the older kids compared to the younger kids, it's like they should know by now. I shouldn't have to tell them, because I do have that mindset. I do have that mindset when it comes to Boo. Like with chores, every day it's do this, do that. Did you do this? Did you do that? Okay, it's time to practice this. And, I keep thinking, but when I was your age, I was already doing all this stuff. And I actually stopped saying that phrase when I was your age several years ago. And because I realized, well, my parents were my age, they had a lot less than I did, or they didn't have access to certain things that I do now. And it doesn't help our kids to constantly be going, well, when I was your age, unless they ask, what were you doing at my age? Like, what were you accomplishing at my age? What is one thing that makes you laugh the most when you think back on it? Because, not all mistakes are bad mistakes. They're just mistakes.
Well, one of the ones that I get made fun of the most about, and I'm thinking this happened even before our kids came along. I was just being real gullible. I got a phone call one day. They said I won a free boat, and
it's so random. It's like, when did I enter a contest for a boat?
I won a free boat, but it would cost me $90 to get it shipped to me. Well, in my brain, it was like, a boat? Oh, it's going to cost me $90 to get it shipped to me? And I paid the $90, and I ended up with this inflatable, a boat with the motor. It said boat with motor. Okay. And so I got this inflatable dinghy, and it had a hole that went through the back of it, and the motor looked like a hairdryer that you put a little propeller on that went through that. But here's the funniest part. You had to plug in the motor.
Oh, my gosh.
So, my husband has brought that up many times. Well, you don't, nothing's ever free.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a funny.
What is you're kind of funny, man. Funny uh-ohs when it came to, like, dealing with the kids. Because I probably because I just have Boo, I've never done the whole I forgot this kid at the store kind of thing.
I have definitely forgot a kid or two at times. And the worst one was I forgot my 1-year-old. She was asleep on the bed, and we went to the ball field. And we got to the ball field, and I told Ryan, I said, get her out of her seat. And the thing is, there was a child sitting right next to her seat and never said, hey, the baby's not here. And I said, Ryan, get her out of her seat, put her in the stroller. I was giving out instructions because we were at the ball field. And he goes, Mama, there's no baby in this seat. I said, Ron, don't be messing with me. Just get her out of the seat. He said, Mama, there is no baby in this seat. and my,
I want to say fell. I know who this was because we had this conversation when we were over at your house one day for dinner.
Anyway, my stomach fell, and thankfully my sister-in-law was at the ball field, and I said, would you please watch my children? I got to go back home and get my baby. And she goes, yeah. And of course, by the time I got back, it was all over the ball field that I'd left a baby at home. And she was still asleep on the bed, thankfully. She wasn't walking around the house crying or anything.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I've had a few of those. And another, of course, big mistake is reacting badly to bad behavior, rather than acting purposefully. Yeah. And, that come with just experience that I had to learn to act purposefully rather than react to bad behavior.
Oh, yeah.
And that was learning.
I would say the same thing, but it may have taken me a little bit longer. It took me about 12 years to learn that lesson. And it's like you forget when your kids are little that they don't understand, and then you all this energy and emotion builds up in you and it just bursts. Like they poked the bear one too many times and it started growling.
Well, I can't even remember which child this happened with, but I remember one day I was standing there yelling at one of my children, and I happened to look up and there was a mirror right in front of me as I was yelling, and I just stopped in mid-sentence. I went, oh my gosh, that is the scariest face I've ever seen. Look what your child is seeing. And I just like, I am so sorry. Mm-hmm. Let me go think about this and I'll come back to this conversation, But it was just an awakening moment that this is what my child is seeing when I'm standing here yelling at them. And that's not what I want them to remember. I want them to remember a humble mom that will correct them, but not be overly harsh with them.
Yes, I understand that. It just got me thinking that's a great advice for parents when they feel like they're about to yell at their kids to go to the bathroom, look at the mirror, and yell at your reflection what you were going to yell at your kid, and see the face, and it'd be like,
ooh, that's not good.
That's no. I wouldn't want to see that face. I don't want to see that face. What is something that you and Stevie have learned and incorporated in your lives that the kids have taught you since they've gotten married, started having their own kids, or just doing what they're doing now?
I don't want to sound braggy, and I feel like this is going to sound braggy.
You have all the right to brag because you and Stevie nurtured, raised some amazing human beings.
All my children are some of the bravest, most courageous kids I know, people I know. And I see them being bold and strong and standing on a spiritual foundation that's been laid for them. The spiritual foundation of Jesus Christ, I've just watched them just stand firm on that foundation. And I pray I can be as courageous as they are. They've been humble. They've been repentive. They're willing to turn from, and they're willing to learn from their mistakes. I've seen them not desire the norm.
Yes.
But be willing to be set apart. And I think those are some amazing qualities in people. And I see that in all 9 of those kids. And like I said, I'm on the reward side of it right now. And I'm so thankful. And I hope they all know, again, how valuable they are.
Is there anything like they've... I hate to use taught or showed you how to do, and you're like, that way is so much easier than what I've been doing, or that's like the best thing I've ever seen. That I'm going to be doing that from now on.
Well, yeah, I've definitely learned, especially computer stuff. I've learned that from them. And I still rely on them a lot for that kind of thing. Ryan, he's always been the one to figure out.
Yeah.
You could tell him to do something, and he's going to spend more time trying to figure out the easiest way to do it, where he could have already had it done my way.
Yeah.
You know. Now, he may figure out...
gets it.
He may figure out a better way to do it, but it took him so long that we could have already had it done and went on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But that was just his personality, and it's got him a long way in life.
It has.
I mean, he's amazing, and that was one of his definitely gifts.
People at a job, they go to Ryan for all these quick fixes and better ways to get this done quicker, because he took so long doing this one thing as a kid.
Still, he's got an amazing mind. So, but I learned a lot from that kid.
I believe it.
God knew I needed him.
And just toss this person in the middle, because it can't be the firstborn, it can't be the last.
Yeah, some of my biggest lessons in life were learned through Ryan.
I know. Patience.
Well, just learning that not all kids are the same, and they learn differently, and not expect what one kid does that the next one should be the same.
Yeah.
And they all have their own unique strengths.
Yeah.
And he didn't learn like the rest of them, but I knew he had a brilliant mind. He just learned different.
Yeah. I think that's a conversation that we have with Boo a lot, when we knew the possibility. It was a high 100% of a chance she would have dyslexia, because Ryan showed signs of it and he talked about it when he was younger, and he's not officially diagnosed, people, but he shows all the signs. And so we kind of figured if we had multiple kids, at least one of them would have it. Turns out it was the one and only we had. And he is teaching her ways to navigate that my brain doesn't even function in that way.
But it makes perfect sense.
It
to
does.
her.
Yeah. And when he explains it, I'm like, how did your brain get there so fast? Because I have to do the step-by-step things. And he's like, why don't you just do this? I'm like, but what about these? No, just do it this way. And I do it his way. I'm like, it took me 3 days to figure this out. It took you 5 minutes. That is so unfair.
Well, I told you he's brilliant.
Yes. And, later
But
on.
it would take him all day to write a set of spelling words.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he would definitely sit there all day and not write spelling words. But I could do it verbally with him, and he would do it. He'd get boom, 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 boom. He'd get it. So.
And, I hope Boo's future husband can appreciate the way her mind works, like I do Ryan. And it's...
Well, he was part of the reason the Lord led us to homeschool. Because we just could not picture him conforming to the
classroom.
They called it a herd mentality.
Oh yeah, he doesn't like being in
He operates on, hands-on learning, and and I believe he's where he is today because of that.
Oh, I have no doubt. I don't think he would be the same person that he is if it wasn't for your decision to homeschool. Because Boo is struggling with the whole... Well, she's not struggling. She melds very well, which is something that I do. Like, I can meld. I'm one of those people that I can go from one group of people to another. I'm not just one. I'm just not in one group. But she also has Ryan's mentality, and she thinks outside of each group. So she's in her own little group by herself. On our last question, what is some advice you would give future moms, whether it's, through biological children, adoption, or they're marrying somebody with kids, they have no experience whatsoever, maybe other than maybe that one Saturday night they babysat their brother?
It would always be seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. I mean, seeking God first in everything. I cannot imagine myself being able to have loved, encouraged, taught my children without seeking God first. That's one thing I did for myself. I got up before they did. I spent time in God's Word and prayed. And the first thing we did every morning was we had Bible time. And I feel like I won more battles at that table with my children, because they had the freedom to ask me questions.
Yeah.
And the ones I couldn't answer, we prayed about. And so it was a time of just learning to pray. And
we do something kind of similar. It's called check-ins. We usually do them every Sunday morning. We have a list of questions, like how's your mental health? How is your situation at school? How is your relationship with your friends? How's your relationship? A bunch of these questions that normally wouldn't be asked. And we can, change questions up and whatnot. And when we are doing our check-ins, it is a no judgment zone. And it has really helped our relationship with Boo. It has helped mine and Ryan's relationship, because until we moved into this house, our communication between he and I, it was okay. Like, there was I want to tell you how I'm feeling right now, or just no good conversation like when we started dating. And we got this from the podcast To Be Better. This is husband and wife. They do have the traditional marriage. Husband's working, wife stay-at-home mom. And, that was also, like, I hate to say we connected, but our mindsets were the same. And then, like, they give out relationship advice and communication advice, and it's all unbiased. They don't know anybody. Just these strangers will email them and tell them their story, and then ask them, what can I do about it? And the husband, he's very blunt. He's not going to hold back, but they're both followers of Christ as well. But looking at them, you wouldn't know it. They both have I wouldn't say he's covered head to toe in tattoos, but he has a lot of tattoos. He has the big ear piercings. I can't remember what they're called. Gauges in his ears. And she has a lot of tattoos. She's got a lot of piercings on her face. But these people are so into their faith, but so relatable into the world, that they can combine them both and give advice while not caring if they hurt your feelings or offend you, because sometimes you have to ask the question, why am I offended? But they do it because they want whoever they're talking to or talking about to realize the problem, to come up with their own answer. And the check-ins, when we first heard about them, I'm like, oh, these are really great things. And we didn't start doing them for a while. And then one Sunday morning, I was like, okay, we need to do these check-ins, and it helps to fix any problems that are coming in between us, in between our family. One of the questions is, are we happy with the division of housework? And so far, everybody's good with it. And there have been times one of us will be like, hey, I feel like you're kind of slacking or falling behind. We're in the no judgment zone, and we're like, okay, how can I improve on it? Or we can ask for help instead of making it seem like we're making excuses. It has just become a part of our Sunday morning ritual and routine. And I've been talking about that for a long time. That's how we start our week. And it is a great thing, especially with Boo, because I wish I had had something like this growing up. And one of the questions, are you getting to Switzerland?
Are you getting to Switzerland?
Yes. And the basis for that question is, are you getting to somebody that you feel comfortable talking about a certain thing? And they won't, if it's, they don't need to talk about it to somebody else. Like, Boo may have a topic that she's only comfortable talking about with me, or she might have a topic or concern, really, that she's only comfortable talking about with Ryan, or something that she can go talk to a teacher about. And if the teacher feels like she needs to tell me, she could probably call and tell me. But it was probably one of the best questions for kids that I saw there. I was like, that is such a good question. Were there times, and we finished the questions I had for you. Were there times that when you and Stevie got in bed and just started talking about your day, and one of you went like, this kid came up to me and we started talking about this, and you thought, well, why didn't they just come talk to me about it? You ever felt like there were times that your kids couldn't trust you with a question? Not trust you, go to you for an answer to a question.
Well, I have noticed that, they may have went to a sibling. Mm-hmm. It tend to be the other way around. They would ask me instead of their daddy. But, and it was mostly because he was busy, and I was there. Mm-hmm. But, I know there's things that they probably went to their sister or their brother about rather than coming to me about. Yeah. And I understand that, because there was things I'd rather just go talk to my sister about than go talk to my mother about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just normal. And I'm okay with that. The main thing is that they know that I love them. And I don't mean this for just my 9 kids. This is for my kids in love too. That I love you regardless. And I may not react all the time perfectly, mm-hmm. but the underlying thing in our relationship is I love you. I may have corrected you at times.
I think I talked about it early on in the podcast. Mm-hmm. There have been times you've corrected me and you were right to do so, even though I didn't feel like it at the time. But it's all hindsight. It's like, she was right.
and I just pray that you didn't, that it didn't come across, and I'm sure sometimes it did come across as a condemnation, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to be more of a, let's correct this and let's make things better.
Well, in case you didn't know, you're very intimidating.
I know. I'm sorry.
And all of us know it is not intentional like you're not lording yourself around like I'm better, is probably because you're so humble. A lot of people are seeing everything that you've done amazingly with your kids, and they're like, I could never do that. How does she do that?
And see, that's the message I want everybody to see. You can do it.
Yeah.
If I can do it, anybody can do it. Because here's me, and you may not believe this. I'm unorganized. I'm a procrastinator. I tend to put things, procrastination is putting things off. I will put things off, and I can be a little bit rebellious.
No.
Oh, yes. And
I don't think I've seen that side of you being rebellious yet.
Well, ask your father-in-law. There is some rebelliousness about me, and all of that has to be brought in under the control of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Without, I have to emphasize this, without the work of God in my life, the work of the Holy Spirit that He's given me, none of this could have happened. Because God placed strategic people in my life to motivate me. And it would be pushy people that I love dearly. And I won't name any names, but the Lord put several pushy people in my life that push me beyond my limits. Mm-hmm. And they would I feel like the Lord would put me in their life to help teach them to chill.
Yeah.
But I needed them to push me beyond my limits.
Yeah.
So I think God does that a lot with people.
You know, if you don't have those friends or even the strangers come push you past your limit, how do you know what your limit really is?
Right.
Because you could be either a foot to your limit or 100 miles. But there's just a little bit of rocky road between that limit. If you could go anywhere and not worry about coming back home for a while, what is somewhere you and Stevie want to go?
I like going places,
Mm-hmm.
but I like coming home.
Mm.
And recently we really love the country house.
Yeah.
And that's where we both like to go. So if I could just go and stay a while, I would go there.
That seems like a great answer. Everybody needs a little country house. Just to go, get out of that normal chaos and into
It's peace.
Yes. I would say my place is, even though it often is chaotic in itself, is going and having lunch with my two best friends.
That's a good place to be.
Thank you so much for coming. If y'all have any questions, comments, recommendations, advice, you can send all of those either for myself or for my amazing mother-in-law. You can send all of those to southernmillennialmoms@gmail.com. Keep it clean, keep it kind, but keep it real. Love y'all. Bye.